Hello there, Room17 once again. This is my Conker's Bad Fur Day playthrough, and unfortunately this is the Elgato ruining another playthrough. So you're going to notice right now that the volume is completely different to what you're seeing, because the volume's actually in time of what the video should be, but the video is this weird artifacted, skipping, sped up nonsense. So we're going to lose so much stuff right now, and it's probably the most interesting part of War, because there's a lot of tough sections and there's me getting angry and just really frustrating stuff, basically. So I don't know why this problem happens. I've updated my software to make sure it's right. I've double checked on all the setting videos to make sure that I've got the piece of equipment set up correctly. I checked my CPU when I'm capturing to see if it's CPU spikes or it's something on my machine's end, and it doesn't look like it is. The reality here is, for whatever reason, and I've had it on 2 Elgatos, and this right now was the very first day of using a completely brand new one that had just been opened from the box. But when I do recording sessions, and they last not even that long, like I said, this was like 2 hours into a session of recording, every so often for some reason I get this happen, where one of the pieces of footage is just ruined beyond repair. And normally it's not even this good. This is kind of like best case scenario, as the boss instantly murders me right now, which is quite funny at the time. And I don't know why he does it, it just kind of does. And then, you know, I'll spot it, I'll check it, I'll get all pissed off, then I'll turn it off, I'll reopen the software, and then it'll capture again fine. And it fluctuates between quality, it fluctuates between audio and video desync. It just has these 2 very, very large issues that it continuously has, and I don't know of a remedy of it, and I'm so angry at this equipment at this point where I don't really want a remedy. I just want to not use it anymore. I want to get back to something that is not a piece of shit. But because this is kind of salvageable, I've put it in and I'm going to commentate over it. So this boss fight here, the tank doesn't control very well, as you know. The camera here is kind of awkward, and you have to use the cannon to shoot off the guns of the boss, and then you have to shoot the little girl doll. And once you do that, it opens up the back vent on the teddy bear, and then you can shoot it. At this point, though, I wasn't exactly too sure what I was doing, so you'll notice I'm running away quite a lot. I'm trying to shoot it manually, like getting all swag, YOLO, crazy, hip fire, sniper rifle, tomfoolery, and it's not really working. And because I have no confidence in the ability to use the controls, I don't do what I just did then, which is just get some distance from him, go into the scope, and then shoot the doll. And then as soon as I realise, this is a pretty formulaic and simple boss fight, and it's going to have 3 rotations, as with most boss fights. So now he has his lasers, and we're in the little cave, and I'm going to start turning my turret so that it's facing him, so that when I edge out of the side of cover, I can immediately go into the aimer and I can shoot the weapon. And it's a really good strategy. It's just you have to be comfortable with the controls, and I'm just not comfortable because this controls like a very old game, and I've been playing games that control really well recently, so it kind of really throws you off. But we got there in the end, and the chocolate that's in the arches that's around the arena respawns, and you can pick it up in the tank, because you actually can't get out of the tank in this particular sequence. And this is the very final phase of the fight. So once you blow up both of these rocket launchers... Oh, by the way, this kills the frame rate too. So if you've watched the silly collateral Conker video that I made, which is the commentary that was on this original video, if it had been full length and not fucked up into Elgato piece of shit, this is the part where I'm saying frame rate, because the frame rate is absolutely dying to death right now. And it was pretty funny, because it just doesn't make any sense. Like, the particle effects were really that intensive on the hardware that it has to kill the frame rate in such a god-awful way. But here she goes swearing at us again, knocked her down, and then we're going to fire one in the back of him, and he's dead. Luckily enough, we can skip this pretty boring fight. And I mentioned in the live commentary that I couldn't remember this fight at all, which tells you that I didn't think it was very good. And while it is, a functional fight, and there's a rhythm to it, and it makes a lot more sense than some boss fights have in some games, I just don't think it stands out as being anything all that special. It's almost like a filler boss for me, this one. But we're now moving into the final part of War, which is the hardest part of the game in my opinion. And of course the capture device fucks up, which is horrendous because it's a really tricky sequence. And it was a fun like trial / crucible in the playthrough, because I knew it was going to be bad, and it was bad, and I got frustrated, and you know, I raged a little bit, and then I got to the end part where you're still on the same checkpoint, and I managed to do it first time, even though the game completely changed the rules, and all of that is pretty much fucked, which is really, really annoying. But if you remember, there's a part in that collateral Conker video where I go, why did they really have to time us, or something like that, and it's because of this section coming up. You have to navigate a tunnel full of lasers, full of teddies, while you are being timed, and whereas it's not as difficult as I remember it being, because I was a kid and I wasn't very good at the game, it's still pretty tricky doing some of these precise jumps on a game that's not quite as precise as... Even though, don't get me wrong, I think this game is pretty precise, but just with the camera angle, with the depth perception, and just with the way that games have changed, it's tricky. It feels tricky because it's not what you're used to. And of course, you go around a corner and then you get gangbanged by Vietnamese teddies. And then the camera's fantastic right here, showing us the wall, and I'm dead. So Panther does his little speech, and then we get back in the game. And it starts you up here with the clock already ticking. You've got way enough time to carry on. But I'm going to rush these early attempts because I'm not a very patient person when it comes to doing something I don't like. I think a lot of people are like that. You have to turn off your feelings with some stuff. It's like when you work a boring job, or you're on a shift that you don't like, or you're doing something that you don't really want to do, but you kind of have to do. There's a part of you when you're a mature adult where you can just kind of accept that you're there. And the last thing in the world that you want in those moments is hope. And I say this because, is there anything worse than thinking that you're going to get out of someplace earlier, or you might be able to get out earlier and then not? I don't think there is. Which is why I've always felt that, for instance, when you work a 3-hour shift, I've always felt it was harder than working an 8-hour shift or a 10-hour shift. And of course the labours of them. 8 hours labour is tougher than 3 hours, you know, if you're going to be super, you know, pedantic about it. But I just mean mentally. I always found that, you know, shorter shifts lasted so much longer because I was under this delusion of hope that I would get to do something with the rest of the day because I'm not there all day. So those 3 hours felt like 10. Yet on the 8-hour shifts, because you're like, oh well, I'm here all day, I might as well not have any hope of, you know, having fun today, you just kind of get on with it, and you take yourself away. You separate your ambitions and your wants, and then you replace it with what you have to do. You know, I have to do this to get money. You know, the world runs on money. So I always found that mentality to be, you know, a little bit like video games in some ways, where when you're at a part of the video game and you really don't want to do it, and you're rushing it because you want to do something afterwards, you can be there so much longer than if you just accept you're going to be there. And a good example of this for me personally is with checkpoints. Like, I would rather be stuck on a section for 10 hours if I only had to replay 3 minutes of the game when I died and the checkpoint was good. But if you make me play 15 minutes of the game, but I'm only there for an hour, I will still hate that more. Because there's something in me that hates having to replay large amounts of content. Even though 15 minutes is not compared to a speedrunner who does, like, you know, a 4-hour speedrun or an 8-hour speedrun, where a reset there you're losing, you know, half your day, which is absolutely insane to me, and it's why I'll never do it. As I'm getting multi-hit here by lasers, getting really unlucky on my jumps, getting probably quite frustrated as well, being like, you know. But we'll get there, folks. Even though you can kind of tell what's happening, but you can kind of not as well. It's, you know, it's a mixture. But, you know, we'll do it. As I'm having a pretty good run here, but this one seems to be my kryptonite recently. And I get through it, and I get the guns on, and I get the teddies. And then on the next one, if you jump on this box, you can actually crouch past the lasers, which is one of the things I was experimenting with. And then on the next one, you can crouch past the lasers as well. And we've pretty much just done right there the path of least resistance through the lasers, because if you crouch through this, the camera's horrible by the way, you can get here, and you can get to the shootout, and then you've done it. All you've got to do now is... There's a big fight here, but watch this. And in the collateral damage video, you know, when I go, I knew it was going to happen, I saw it coming, and I still fell for it. That was the moment with those lasers, the blue lasers on the door. I could see the ports at the side, and I had a feeling the lasers were going to turn up, but I still went for it, because I'm an idiot. And I couldn't tell you why. But if you listen right now, Conker's talking to the teddy bear in armour who's on our side, the dude, Rodent I think he's called. How long ago was that? Like straight up. That's where this video should be, rather than where it is. Because the Elgato is such a gifted piece of machinery that works flawlessly every single time, for as long as you want it to. Do not buy it. But you've noticed how it's changed my weapon here to a frying pan? I'm trying to pull my gun out because I know the teddies are coming, and when you do pull your gun out, you've got a rocket launcher. I have 2 squares of chocolate, and all the rocket launcher is going to do is kill me, because it's got splash damage. So I was very angry at this point, being like, why would they do this? Why would they make you do this, and why would they change it in such a way that I don't think benefits you? And then I ended up doing it first time without like getting hit after that opening section, and it went okay. But at the time, I was miffed. I was really miffed because you have to do all of this on the same checkpoint. If you die in this fight, the checkpoint is right at the start, past before all the lasers, which is not the toughest checkpoint in the world, but it can be quite frustrating when you're having trouble. But the good thing about this rocket launcher is, as I mentioned, the thing that can kill you is the splash damage, but it can also kill them. So watch this. I shoot the ceiling, and the splash damage hits him and kills him, and it ends the sequence. And then when we come out here, this is the craziest thing in the game right now. You have to get past a bunch of spawning teddy bears with rocket launchers who have automatic aim. They will hit you when you jump in, when you're strafing, when you're running, it doesn't matter. They have amazing aim, and this first run right now was really close to being a successful run. And then I get killed there. And at the time, I couldn't remember how long this sequence was, so I'm despairing at this point because I remember this being horrible, and it is. And if you try and kill the teddy bears, it gets really rough as well. So I get it in my head that I've got to run the gauntlet because I know that's what I did when I was younger. But I can't remember how long it is. And it turns out where I got to is like 2 steps away from the event trigger that scripts the cutscene that gets you out of the level. But of course I didn't know that, so I'm just like, this is insane. Instant death, perfect aim, they're everywhere. There's at least 4 or 5 teddies that are just crisscrossing fire at you when you try and move. So I decided to try and shoot some people with the rockets, and it kind of don't work as I get blown up again. You can see the bullets on the screen, which is a pretty cool touch. But yeah, a lot of just silliness happening here and getting really, really just miffed by this. You know, the point where I'm like, this is in the game. This is actually in the game. You know, this is happening right now. That moment is this. Because it's so strange how crazy that this sequence is. Like, it reminds me of a worse version of the end of the Residence in Gears of War, where all the boomers were there. And then they changed that in the Gears of War Ultimate because that section was really awkward on Insane. Whereas this is the normal difficulty. This is like the only difficulty the game has, and you're up against aimbots that instantly murder you. Which, if this section was any longer than it is, I'm just flabbergasted it exists. And I was saying at this moment, like, this got a 9 out of 10 in all the review magazines that I read. It got really, really good scores. And this sequence right now is harder than the last 5 Call of Duties, because you don't die this fast in COD, and it's not this brutal anymore. And I was basically saying that the journalists of today couldn't do the Trial of Archimedes and bitched so much in their reviews that the developers patched that part of the game. Imagine this section. Nobody complained when this came out, this game, because we were so used to just getting the shit end of the stick. This was just a Tuesday. This was, you know, buy some dollars. But nowadays, this would be banned. This would be universally just condemned. And it goes to show how just the cultural view of games and difficulty and sections is just shifted so drastically, because of course, you know, games aren't games anymore, they're these experiences. But this is brutal, really brutal. And I was saying at the time, like, I hope there's a trick to this, like a little sneaky path where you just crawl under a fence or you jump over a fence and it's dead easy that I just have not seen. But I don't think it is. I think it's literally what you're watching. It's, you know, you run, you pray, and you hope you have good luck. And then eventually I do, which will be the end of the video. But it's just really frustrating that you missed it, folks, because this is arguably the finest hour of the walkthrough, because it has a really tough section. It had, you know, some really silly commentary on it. It had some moments of rage, some great moments, and look at the cutscene. Look how close I was the first time. How crazy is that? So close. But you get back to the ship, You get on with the captain guy, and he starts doing his big war speech about armchair generals that sit behind lines and never see conflict, and, you know, a bit of social commentary. But I'm going to be getting a different capture device to try and avoid these issues in the future, because it's affected every playthrough I've made. Every single project I've made with the Elgato has had a failure somewhere. Every single one. Some of them have been absolutely catastrophic, like Arkham Knight. Others have just been really, really annoying, like this one. And there's no pattern. There's no rhythm, there's no cadence to it. It just happens. And I sound a bit like a broken record because it's happening a lot and it keeps happening and I keep mentioning it, but it's just this weird, awful thing where, you know, when you buy something, you expect it to work. And this, for me, isn't, but for everybody else, seems to work fine. So I'm probably going to get the HD PVR 2 and see how that is, and hopefully not have too many issues with it, because my PVR did me 5 years. And I'm proud of that machine. It did start the audio desync towards the end of its lifetime, but it had a really good innings. The Elgato lasted me less than 5 weeks. Literally. This one lasted less than 5 days. Like, just disgusting, dude. Absolutely disgusting. And that's why this video exists in this state, because unfortunately the technology sometimes just cannot be trusted. So thank you very much for watching. The rest of the playthrough should be okay, fingers crossed, and you take care now.